All right. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. I'm excited to have with us today Max Ali. Did I say Ali's? Is that how you say it?
Alice, yeah.
Alice. Okay. Max Alice. He has a technology company that focuses on helping small businesses identify their weaknesses and protecting themselves from cybersecurity threats. And we're going to turn it over to Max to share with us some tips and tricks. And Max, take it away.
Thanks, Brad. And that's exactly what we got. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. And what I put together are 5 little tips that any business can reference in order to better strengthen their cybersecurity posture. So we'll go through a couple of these items, and then we'll go through and do an email penetration test so you can kind of see exactly why cybersecurity is something you should be concerned about. To begin, it's really important to realize that the biggest problem with cybersecurity is awareness. Many businesses think that they're protected, but they end up with huge issues, and they're only looking to strengthen their posture after they've been hit with a breach, which at that point in time becomes too late. So hopefully these tips can help you and can add value to friends, neighbors, colleagues as they try to protect their businesses. So the first tip is that you should always enforce multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication is where you get that text code that supplements your password. And there's a few reasons why this is important. The first is because of something called the dark web. The dark web is a registry of all known passwords that have been leaked or breached. And it can have breaches from Target, it could have breaches from small business websites. But if your username and password was on a Target website that was breached, then that's in this registry, and hackers will go through and buy these lists, and they will try that same username and password combination on various sites, such as your bank accounts, such as your emails. So there's a big tip here in that you never want to reuse passwords. But further, the multi-factor authentication can give you protection in a situation where your password is found to be known and vulnerable. Now, let me give you an example of where this practice isn't followed and how it impacts a business. When someone has your email and password, one of the most common types of scams or hacks I see is that someone will log into your email account, they'll download a list of all your contacts, and then they will draft a phishing message from your account and send it to all your contacts to try to gain access to their passwords and their emails. And the big issue here is that you're typically unaware of the incident because Microsoft or Google will send you an alert saying someone signed into your account. But these folks are in the account, they refresh your inbox, they delete that alert. And further, your friends, neighbors, colleagues, whomever is sending emails, they're typically trying to respond to you saying, hey, something fishy is going on, you might want to be aware of this. But typically what these hackers will do is they will create an inbox rule that says any new inbox automatically mark as read and put in trash. And that way you're not receiving these notes unless someone picks up the phone and calls you. So this is a very, very common way that we see breaches occur, and it's very impactful to businesses, and it harms your reputation with clients. So multi-factor authentication is the best way that you can improve your cybersecurity today. The second tip is to train your staff. 97% of breaches start with a phishing email. This is where someone sends you something, you click on a link, and all of a sudden, by clicking that link, you've basically given them access to your entire systems. If you don't believe me, you should have your business run what's called a penetration test, where you click on a link sent in an email, and we'll show you exactly what's compromised within your organization. So by training your staff to be on the lookout for phishing emails, to only click on links that are expected, you're negating 97% of potential threats. The next tip is to upgrade your antivirus to a managed detection and response system, or MDR. Here's the difference. Antivirus uses definitions. So basically, folks at Norton, at McAfee headquarters, they're on the lookout for viruses. when they realize that, hey, there's this virus out there, they're going through and they're saying, okay, well, let's add this to the definitions list and let's go ahead and block it. But there are two flaws with this approach. The first is that if you fail to update your antivirus, you're missing those updated definitions and you're still vulnerable. But secondly, what happens if a virus hits you before the McAfee folks have seen it? Or what happens if something was custom tailored for your business? Or what if you have a situation where you're exposed to polymorphic malware, which changes its code every time it's deployed so it can't be tracked? The only way to fight against these types of threats is to use an MDR system, which on top of definitions has two key components. It uses artificial intelligence to look at the behavior of the program, script, or virus, and it adds a human element that's looking at what's happening, what's being detected, and they can look at potential threats and roll them back in real time. So managed detection and response is a slightly higher investment than an antivirus, but it's a great step towards protecting your systems. Next, you've all heard about VPNs, virtual private networks, or software firewalls. And these are great ways to protect your home office, right? Or to protect yourself when you're working remotely on vacation, out of a hotel room, etc. What a VPN does is it takes whatever network you're on and it bypasses it and puts you on a different network. So you could VPN into your office firewall, which is a place where you have your IT staff that's supporting your security needs in and out of the network. Or you could look at using a software firewall where the firewall is managed in the cloud and therefore can travel wherever you are. This is a way of ensuring that security policies and filtering is being applied wherever you are. And finally, our last tip today is to use a password manager. If we did run a penetration test on your business, I could virtually guarantee that we'll get all the passwords saved on your computer. And the reason is because Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Firefox, they don't encrypt all the passwords that are saved within your browser. I mean, they encrypt it when it's syncing to different locations in the cloud, but on your local device, these are decrypted and they don't require a password to access. So by using a password manager such as LastPass, such as Dashlane, you're finding yourself in a position where you're not as vulnerable to these phishing links because these passwords are still encrypted even if somebody does manage to get on your computer. Do you guys have any questions on these tips so far? All right, well, the last component of this presentation is to do an email penetration test. This is a very high level test that kind of tests the security of your emails. I don't know if there's a volunteer who wants to drop their email address in the chat and we'll run through the test in real time. Thanks, Brett. So I'm going to copy Brett's email and we're going to start the test. So Brett's going to get an email and he's going to reply to it real quick. And then we're going to get the results that'll kind of tell us how secure is his email system. And it looks at how the email is delivered to his inbox, but it also looks at how the email responses are sent out and looks at kind of some of the encryption protocols and best practices.
I got the email. I'm just trying to figure out the right step here. Hold on.
Oh, you just reply to it with anything.
Oh, just hit reply. Okay.
Now that's because Brett knows it's coming, right? He'll reply because we teach employees don't reply to things you don't know, right? So
Correct.
okay.
Yes, and he just told me it was coming from Radar and I got it, so I hit reply.
All right, and so here's our security score. And so it'll tell us what are our issues. And so right now we know exactly where Brett is because his location is tagged to his email. So this is something we might look at and say, okay, how do we hide his location as his emails are being sent outbound? It looks like the email can be easily spoofed. So we might have to add what are called DKIM records. And we get this list of, okay, well, here are the sort of things that can be done to improve his security score. So all in all, it's not a bad score, but there are things that can be done to improve. So the moral of this story with this email penetration test or with any penetration test in general that focuses on your network or on your devices is that if we can learn what the vulnerabilities are, we can protect you from those vulnerabilities before a hacker can discover them. So thank you guys so much for the time.
Thank you, Max. Questions? I'm gonna unpin this here. Question, and then Max, as people are coming up with questions too, your company could you kind of describe the service that
Yeah,
you
so
provide?
Alice Technology does a lot of cybersecurity awareness, where we will conduct penetration testing, whether from email networks or devices, to uncover vulnerabilities and threats. We typically do those complimentary. And then we also put in place the best practices to secure your networks. We help small and medium businesses implement enterprise-grade security solutions to help them with compliance needs. If you're regulated by HIPAA, FINRA, NIST, CMMC, but we also help with general security positioning, so that even if someone clicks on a phishing link, even if you do download a threat, that we're still protecting your business.
Hey, Max, one of the, so when you deal with these businesses, and I don't know if the slide deck kind of covered them, but what is the biggest vulnerabilities you see with small businesses? So if obviously the chamber targets a lot of business sizes, but if we were to target small and medium businesses, what would you expect to find if you did this for a small and medium business? What's their biggest vulnerabilities?
Yeah, the things that I think are most important are really in line with the tips we went over. There are countless tips that we could talk about, but the things that most small and medium businesses are weak on are enforcing the multi-factor. So I do see a lot of cases where folks do get into your email, do send phishing notes from your account to all your clients, and do redirect all the responses to trash, right? So that's a big threat. Then we have the training, right? Virtually every attack can be prevented by training your staff not to click on phishing emails, right? And regulated businesses, those in financial services especially, are trained by regulation. They have to make sure that they're going through these types of procedures, making sure that they're getting phone call verifications if they have to move money around. It's very, very big to prevent breaches, just watching your inbox. Adding spam and virus filters to your inbox, or adding tools like Iron Scale's artificial intelligence scanning to your inbox can really cut down on those threats, but that's a really big threat. Antivirus, it's basically useless. So if you're going to pay for a security tool, you just need to use an MDR. But really the big things, phishing emails, multi-factor authentication, and the password managers. Because if you did click on a phishing link, your passwords are basically public knowledge at that point if they're saved in Chrome, Edge, or Firefox.
Yeah. Now, most of your tips seem to be related to those companies that they issue emails to employees. What about the retail or some of the brick and mortar businesses?
Yeah, so there are
the
different protections that you can put on different types of computer systems, and the types of protections you use kind of depends on that particular business. There's ways to do cybersecurity in a very expensive way, and there's ways to do it economically, and it all kind of comes down to cost-benefit analysis. But there are tools we put on computers that would prevent the installation of all software unless it was physically reviewed and approved. So that cuts down on endpoint threats. We'll typically recommend that we turn off access to USB drives, right? So that the computer won't recognize USB drives. Because typically in those types of environments, you just don't use them. And that's a great way that folks will try to infiltrate systems. But on a high level, it really becomes a case-by-case basis what's going to make the most sense for any given business.
Yeah, that and computer access or web access. I know from a lot of computers that employees, have on a checkout line or something like that. It might have the point of sale software on it, but they have the capability of going on the internet as well. And I think of my dentist office. I go in there, and in their bathroom is their cabinet with all their equipment in there, the router, the switches, and everything's right there. and they don't even lock that. I kind of chuckle.
Yeah,
when I'm in
and
there.
access
So,
controls are huge, so they should be
Yeah.
locking that, and that's especially why it's important to lock down USB drives, because you could just pop a thumb drive in there that'll automatically execute a malicious script, and they're in a bad position.
Yep.
And part of HIPAA is having those lockable access controls, so we probably need to have a chat with your dentist there. But yeah, it becomes a big risk just looking at how available are your systems to the average person or client, right? That's where a lot of risk happens.
Yep. Thank you.
Sarah, yeah.
You know, with a really small company, all of our people use their own computers, and we have a personal device use, form, and everybody has to have a VPN. But it's pretty hard to keep track of, right? They go home.
Yeah, it's super hard to keep track of. Really, the best practice is to try to avoid bring your own device policies. I mean, a lot of businesses do it. It's very economical to do it. I usually argue that the cost of a data breach outweighs the cost of investing in devices for your employees, but having a separation between personal and work becomes very, very important. But that said, in any BYOD environment, the key thing you have to require are VPNs or software firewalls, because you never know how protected the networks are where they're working. So that's a great move there, but I'd highly encourage that you have business only devices, particularly if you deal with sensitive information. Now, many companies that do allow BYOD can safely do so if virtually all of what they're doing is web-based, right? You're logging in on your browser for your email, your browser for your web apps. But if you're saving company data to your hard drive, that's when I'd say it's time to invest in some company devices.
Yeah. Yeah. The pandemic obviously threw us. Everybody, went home and,
Yeah, same with us, Sarah. Yeah, everybody went home and we all kind of scrambled to continue productivity, and so some of that was people using their own laptops, and over time we've, like Max said, we've gotten off of those but I don't think I'm 100% off of those with my staff, but I think we're at 90% off of any personal devices. But yeah, it threw us, that's for sure.
yeah,
And one
even our
thing you can
EHR
do-
system says it's encrypted and all that, but it's an app,
Yeah, and I always say a lot of folks feel very comfortable with web apps, especially when it comes to like HIPAA regulated industries. And they say, okay, well, that's taken care of on this side. But the one thing I always try to remind folks is that there are different types of hacks, different types of threats. And the ones that I worry about when you're dealing with web apps is that you have this false sense of security because someone can still install a screen recorder to view everything on your computer that's happening, including what's happening on that encrypted platform. And they can install keyboard loggers, figure out the credentials, figure out what's being typed in. So while you do have security with those types of systems, it's still important to be very careful about how you're managing the endpoints.
Yeah, good point. And then I know, Mark, you got to drop off, but thank you for being here today. It was good to see you. One of the things you mentioned, Max, that is a really good idea, and I use, I don't think my whole staff's using it, but those what do you call them, those password portals or
Password managers.
But Max pointed out to me one of my flaws is my password manager, my browser's saving my password for me to make it convenient. So when I log in, right, I log in, my password automatically shows up to my password manager. So if somebody breaches my computer, they have all my passwords because I have auto saved that stupid password. So I'm going back and having my computer forget that password. I'm changing it, having it forget it. And now I just have to remember that one password, because I probably have 200 passwords in my password manager, or maybe not quite that many, but 150-ish. And I don't want it to everybody to have access to those.
So are you recommending one of those password manager? I mean, is one better than the other?
Most of them will work. The big thing that password managers will do is they'll offer a greater level of encryption than your browser, and they'll offer multi-factor authentication, right? So if you're not at your desk and somebody tries to hop on and knows your computer password, right, they could get into all the stuff that's saved on the computer. But if you have multi-factor on your password manager, then when you log in at the first of the day, you have to verify with your cell phone that, yes, this is me to access your password. So it's an extra step, but it really enforces security.
Okay.
I got to see if mine has that capability, because it doesn't do it right now, but all
Yeah,
right.
you typically have to configure them separately. It's not by default, which is frustrating.
Yeah, so I'm going to go in and do that this morning. Gotta make the password manager secure, because otherwise what is the point of even having it, right? Any other questions or thoughts for Max?
I have a general question. I know that with the continual data breaching, there's some portion of IT experts who think that we're headed towards a privacy-free zone and that it's just going to become open source where data is just available. What does that look like in terms of your world or your interpretation of that?
I don't think we'll be in that particular position, but what I do think we'll see more and more of is many larger companies are going to adopt principles of what's called zero trust, which is basically block, then see what has to come through. And this will kill productivity a little bit. Every time you try to run a new program, you're going to have it approved by your IT departments. It's going to really increase security. So this is what a lot of folks are moving towards. So I think that you're going to ultimately lose a little bit of productivity with your systems, but I don't think we'll be in that particular position that you're mentioning.
Any other questions or thoughts? Well, thank you, Max, for coming to share with us. I appreciate you bringing your expertise, sharing your tips. We will be sharing this with our broader chamber audience, which is why we recorded it today. So, thank you. And we'll circle back as we get deeper into our discussion about our January 13th symposium on this broader topic.
That sounds good. And if you guys do need more speakers, I know a lot of folks in the industry who specialize in different areas, so I could help you come up with a list of folks that'd be great speakers.
I wonder if you could just quickly say, like, when you come into a small company, what does it look like? Like, what do you typically do? Who do you meet with? And how is it broken down?
I typically like to speak with the owner or CEO to begin, because most folks within an organization are very, very cost conscious from my experience, which is a good thing. Every business needs to save money wherever they can. I find that the CEO or the owner is the most concerned with protecting reputation, right? So I try to run a penetration test to basically accomplish two things. A, to see where exactly are the vulnerabilities within a business, and B, create that sense of awareness, right? I think the real big issue we have with cybersecurity is that folks just don't realize that, yes, I too can be a target. And so usually I'll run one of those tests with the owner or the CEO. And after that, after they see the results, I'll typically work with someone else within the organization to figure out an action plan for what can be done different and better.
Okay, thanks.
Good question. Any others? All right, well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop our recording.